An 11-year-old boy was offered $13,000 to kill someone. This wasn't a war zone. This wasn't a failed state. This was Sweden, one of the happiest countries on earth. While the world called it paradise, Sweden quietly became home to over 62,000 gang members, 390 shootings in 1 year, 317 bombings, children as young as 10, recruited as hitmen. How does the world's most admired country end up here? This is the story they don't want you to see. This is Nordic Exposed.
Start with the numbers, because the numbers are shocking. Sweden went from having one of Europe's lowest fatal shooting rates to one of the highest in just 1 decade. By 2022, there were 390 confirmed shootings in a single year. Gun deaths in Sweden are 4 to 5 times higher per capita than neighboring Germany and Norway. And in 2024 alone, 317 bombings were recorded, more than double the year before. That's nearly 1 explosion every single day. Today, an estimated 67,000 people are connected to criminal networks in Sweden. Of those, 17,500 are active gang members. In a country of just 10 million people, that number is extraordinary. And perhaps the most disturbing figure of all, in 2024, approximately 1,700 children and adolescents under the age of 18 were identified as active members of criminal networks. The number of children involved in shootings tripled in just 5 years. Sweden's own former national police commissioner said gang violence could become, and I quote, a threat to Swedish democracy. Let that sink in. So how did this happen? How does the world's most admired welfare state end up here? The answer is complicated, and it involves mistakes that took decades to build up. Sweden has one of the most generous immigration systems in the world. During the 2015 refugee crisis, it accepted more asylum seekers per capita than any other country in Europe. But accepting people and integrating them are 2 very different things. Professor Göran Larsson from the University of Gothenburg puts it clearly. Sweden was naive. It did not do enough to integrate those arriving, nor provide sufficient opportunities for them to become full members of society. Sweden's integration program looked great on paper, but audits told a different story. Just 39% of men and 26% of women were in work or study even 1 year after completing the government's official program. Today, the unemployment rate among foreign-born residents stands at 16%, more than double the national average of under 8%. And of the 163,000 asylum seekers who arrived in 2015, only 500 were employed in that first year. 500 out of 163,000. When people cannot find work, when they are isolated in poor neighborhoods, when the system promises them a future and then doesn't deliver it. Some of them find another system that will. Across Sweden's major cities, Stockholm, Gothenburg, Malmö, something quietly grew for decades. Parallel worlds. By 2023, Sweden had 59 designated vulnerable areas, neighborhoods where criminal networks control local businesses, dictate social behavior through fear, and recruit youth into their ranks. These weren't no-go zones in the Hollywood sense. Police still entered, ambulances still came, but the state's authority had become negotiated. And when the state becomes unreliable, people turn to whoever is reliable. In these neighborhoods, that was the gang. A teenager growing up there didn't need a CV, didn't need Swedish language skills, didn't need a diploma. He needed a phone, a scooter, and someone to tell him which door to knock on. The gang provided all 3. This is perhaps the most disturbing chapter of the entire story. Sweden's age of criminal responsibility is 15. Below that, no prosecution possible. Gangs understood this perfectly. They began specifically targeting children, sometimes as young as 10 or 11, precisely because the law couldn't touch them. One police investigation revealed how a 19-year-old gang member offered an 11-year-old boy 150,000 Swedish kroner, roughly 13,000 euros, to carry out a murder. The boy had posted on Instagram, "I can't wait for my first dead body." The recruiter replied, "Stay motivated, it'll come." Read that again. An 11-year-old boy being offered money to kill someone, and the law could do almost nothing. Within the 15 to 20 age group, serious violent crime suspects increased by nearly 400% between 2014 and 2023. 400% in less than a decade. Behind much of this chaos, one name kept appearing in police files: the Foxtrot Network. Led by a fugitive Kurdish-Iranian gangster named Rawa Majid, known as the Kurdish Fox, the Foxtrot Network operated drug trafficking, bombings, extortion, and contract killings across Sweden. Members obtained foreign citizenships to run operations from abroad, completely beyond the reach of Swedish law enforcement. In January 2024, the Foxtrot Network orchestrated an attack on the Israeli embassy in Stockholm on behalf of the government of Iran. In March 2025, the United States Treasury sanctioned the Foxtrot Network directly, a street gang sanctioned by the United States Treasury, conducting geopolitical attacks on embassies. This is no longer just a crime story, this is a national security crisis. For years, Swedish politicians knew the numbers were getting worse, but many stayed quiet. Why? Because the rising far-right Sweden Democrats were the loudest voices on crime and immigration, and mainstream parties didn't want to validate them. Gun violence in vulnerable areas ran 9 times higher than elsewhere in Sweden, yet the political response was muted for fear of the wrong optics. By the time the crisis was too big to ignore, the damage was already generational. So what is Sweden actually doing about it? And is any of it working? The 2024 National Strategy. In February 2024, Sweden launched its first ever nationwide plan to fight organized crime. 5 goals: stop recruitment into criminal careers, cut access to illegal guns, break the flow of criminal money, strengthen communities against gang influence, and improve coordination between agencies. For the first time, police, local authorities, businesses, and community groups were all legally required to work together. Not just talk about it, work together. So what is Sweden actually doing about it? And as any of I since October 2023, Swedish police have expanded surveillance powers, allowing intelligence gathering on gang-related crimes, longer sentences for gang crimes, crown witness programs, seizure of luxury assets from criminals who cannot prove legal income. Sweden has proposed a new law allowing police to use real-time facial recognition to locate gang members involved in serious crimes, a technology expected to enter into force in 2026. Civil liberties groups are watching this very carefully. The balance between security and privacy will be one of Sweden's defining debates in the coming years. Sweden is moving forward with plans to lower the age of criminal responsibility from 15 to 13 in serious cases, directly targeting the gang tactic of using children as untouchable weapons. Critics, including UNICEF, argue this criminalizes children who are themselves victims of exploitation. Supporters say the alternative is watching 12-year-olds commit murders with zero consequences. There is no easy answer here. It working? The early signs are cautiously promising. Sweden's national police chief reported just 15 shootings in the first months of 2026, compared to 39 in the same period of 2025, a 60% drop. But the same report delivered a warning. Explosion offenses rose from 162 in 2018 to 621 in 2025, the highest level ever recorded. Fewer shootings, more bombs. The violence is changing form, not disappearing. And Sweden still has an estimated 17,500 active gang criminals. The infrastructure of organized crime remains enormous. Where does Sweden go from here? There are real reasons to believe Sweden can turn this around. Shootings are falling, police methods are improving, the political will, which was absent for so long, is finally present. And Sweden still has something many countries can only dream of: a functioning welfare state, strong institutions, a society that still largely trusts its government. These are not small things. These are the foundations that make recovery possible. In the suburbs of Malmö, community workers are running exit programs, helping young gang members walk away from criminal networks. In Stockholm, schools in vulnerable areas are receiving dedicated social workers, specifically to catch children before gangs do. Small programs, but real ones. But here is the warning that Sweden, and every country watching, must hear clearly. Sweden's crisis did not happen overnight. It built quietly over 30 years through a combination of generous intentions without effective follow-through, open doors without open opportunities, neighborhoods that grew apart instead of together, and a political class that looked away for too long. The lesson of Sweden is not that diversity fails. The lesson is that neglect fails, that you cannot welcome people into a country and then leave them at the door. By 2024, an estimated 62,000 individuals were involved in or connected to criminal networks in Sweden. A dramatic shift for a country that once boasted one of Europe's lowest crime rates. 62,000 people. That is not a policing problem. That is a societal failure. And it took 30 years of small decisions, each one seeming reasonable at the time, to build it. Sweden is fighting back, and it may yet write a story of genuine recovery. But the harder question, the one that should keep every government in Europe awake at night, is this. It happened in Sweden, the country with the best schools, the best healthcare, the highest trust in government. Where exactly do you think it cannot happen? Think about that. This was Nordic exposed. If this story made you think, share it with someone who needs to.